It looks like we're recording.
Yes.
So welcome everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. It looks like we have a few new faces, so I'll just give a quick intro on Legal Hackers in general. Legal Hackers is a global organization for people who are just interested in the intersection of technology and law, and that's whether it's using technology to improve access to justice or just make the practice of law more efficient, or even thinking about policy and how policy can adapt to rapidly changing technology. Today's event was co-organized by three chapters across the globe. So we have Cleveland here in the US, Goiania in Brazil, and San Salvador in El Salvador. In Cleveland, we started the chapter last year. It sounds like the Brazil chapter is new as well. I'm going to post a link to our Slack in the chat, and feel free to join the Slack to keep the discussion going after the call, and keep in touch.
Thanks. I'm very pleased to introduce our guests this month, Nikki Shaver and Chris Ford, the creators of Legaltech Hub, the world's most comprehensive directory of global legal tech tools, jobs, events, and resources. At last count, the site lists more than 1,700 legal technology tools from around the globe, 86 pages of resources where even the most worldly of legal technologists can get their geek on. We've asked Nikki and Chris to tell us about Legaltech Hub, their vision for founding the site, who they designed it for, and how they see it adding value. And more generally, we hope that they'll give us their informed perspective on the state of legal technology innovation around the world. And of course, we'd love to hear from all of you. We set aside some time for Q&A at the end of their presentation. With that, take it away, Nikki and Chris.
Thank you so much, Lance. Thank you to all of you for having us. We've been really looking forward to this. And I just quickly have to add that as we were getting ready for this, I mentioned to a friend that, you know, Chris and I were giving a talk to legal hackers, and he was from outside of the industry. And he said, that sounds like a new drama on HBO. So I just, wait, you know, maybe it's something you should think about. That's all. I'm going to share my screen. Please, at any time, if you have questions for us, feel free to jump in and stop. This is meant to be relatively informal. But we have produced a deck. And first up, we want to introduce ourselves. So Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Chris Ford. I'm the junior partner of the two of us in Legaltech Hub. I'm not a lawyer. I have experience in the legal industry through marketing and business development. Originally with LexisNexis, and then more recently Axiom, an ALSP in the New York office. And I'm now the Chief Marketing Officer for Xero. We're an AI-powered email management tool.
And I am Nikki Shaver. I head up innovation and knowledge at a large international law firm. I'm based in New York, but I run global teams responsible for knowledge services, research services, and also innovative technology solutions. And so in my job, one of the things I do is use the knowledge team to build really deep relationships across all of the practices and our attorneys in order to identify use cases and then go to market to identify technology that meets those use cases for our attorneys, but also our clients. But by way of background, I'm a lawyer originally from Sydney, Australia, which is where Chris and I met. So I studied law there, and I practiced in private practice in large law, and then mid-tier law for about 6 years, and then in-house for another 2 or 3 years. So in all, I would practiced as a lawyer for about 9 years and really loved it. But when we moved to Canada, gosh, about 8.5 years ago now, and yeah, and I fell into legal innovation and found that I loved it very, very quickly, and have worked in the field ever since, and have been fortunate to work with some fantastic lawyers and law firms, and actually advise law firms now across a number of countries in the world, including Australia, as well as Canada, and now the US. We are also the parents of 2 children, so we are, you know, people outside of the legal industry as well. And of course, we came together to found Legaltech Hub, which is why we're here today.
So about 2 years ago, Nikki and I had started to have conversations about apologies. I'm just going to go through quickly the agenda here today. We're going to just talk about how Legaltech Hub started, which I gave a little preview of. We're going to talk about what sort of solution we wanted to build to overcome basically what the use case was. We're going to talk about what we've learned, and we've learned a heck of a lot in building this resource. And then we'll show you how it works, and we'll talk a little bit about what legal technology looks like in various geographical regions around the world.
And by the way, we can still see you. So Lance or Camilla, if you want to pause for translation, just throw up a hand and we're happy to pause at any stage. So just to move now into the Legaltech Hub origin story. First of all, really was about identifying a problem in the market. And the problem is, of course, related to the rise of legal tech globally, which all of you are very familiar with. Really, the landscape around legal tech has just boomed over the past 5 to 10 years, but in particular, I would say the last 5 years, with a number of categories of legal tech rising, the amount of investment in legal tech rising, and the sophistication of the technology companies increasing substantially during that period. And in 2015 or so, it would have been really unheard of for there to be significant investment in the legal tech space specifically. Venture capitalists were not terribly interested in that space, but as you can see from a number of the headlines here, since then, there has just been an enormous boon in investment in the space. Many of you will have read about the $66 million investment in Brighter, for example, just earlier last week. And we've seen over $1 billion worth of investment in a single year, for example, and it's growing. So the space is changing. And there are a few reasons for this, and we thought we'd take you through this very rapidly. Apologies for those of you who are very much across this, but of course there's increased competition in the market. So where large law or law generally used to really corner the market on certain types of legal work, now we have all kinds of players in that market, and it's becoming crowded. And those players include, of course, the accounting firms, but also ALSPs, and even the legal tech vendors themselves. So one of these, of course, is the alternative legal service providers. When they first started playing in this market, it was thought by large law in particular that the ALSPs wouldn't really challenge them, that they would play in their own corner of the legal tech field or the legal field more, and would work on the high volume work that a lot of those law firms really were not so interested in conducting themselves. But in fact, this industry has grown enormously, much more than anyone thought at the beginning. And they're starting to take some of the more bespoke, higher end legal work from the large law firms in a way that was really unanticipated, say 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
As someone who used to work at an ALSP at Axiom, arguably one of the biggest in the world, we relied on a lot of the law firms sort of treating us not as a peer or as a competitor, but we, grew a pretty sophisticated, product offering when it came to the outsourcing of legal services from in-house counsel. So we sort of snuck up quite a bit on large law. So that's where the ALSPs have really exploded.
And of course, one of the notable features of ALSPs is that they frequently use technology to augment the services that they provide. Of course, the big four accounting firms also coming into play in areas where there has been greater deregulation in the market. So in Australia and the UK, more recently in Spain, the big four have really made inroads in taking up some of the market share. So in Spain, for example, where there has been deregulation, the big four make up 4 of the places on the top 10 revenue generating law firms in the country, which is a pretty scary proposition, which in the US was considered to be somewhat distant as a threat But then just last year, what we've seen, of course, is amendment and deregulation in various states, including Utah and Oregon. And there's, of course, agitation for more of that. And the first non-lawyer owned law firm recently launched in Utah. So this is becoming a reality in the States as well. This on the screen, some of you might be aware, but Altman Weil provides a survey every year on law firms and legal service providers generally, including around innovation. This is one of the questions that they regularly ask, which is what competitors or what entities is your firm losing business to? And what I think is tremendously interesting is that you can see from the first two questions that one of the sources to which large law is losing business is their own clients. And that's because there has been a tremendous amount of insourcing over the past years. I read recently that this is perhaps now decreasing again, but for several years, there's been a tremendous increase so that external counsel are obviously far more expensive. And bringing some of the work in-house is one way for GCs to reduce cost. They are under a lot of pressure to keep costs down. In-house lawyers are a cost center. They're not the main business. So, we may not think of them that way, but they are under much more cost pressure to keep the cost down and to keep some of the work internally. So as a response to all of that additional competition in the market, what you can see from these headlines is that there is a real emphasis on innovation as kind of being the bomb, right? And I mean bomb as in BALM, not the bomb, although maybe it is the bomb as well. But innovation as the remedy to this increased competition. Using technology to streamline work, to bring efficiency to legal work, to allow law firms to continue to retain some of the market, to allow in-house departments to keep costs down. This has really been heralded as the way of the future for law.
So what we see here is a bit of a snapshot, and thanks to Jay for putting this map together that some of you guys may have seen here. This is just a very small piece of the universe when it comes to the number of legal technology providers out there. And when Lance introduced us, he talked about the number of technology tools that we've actually put up on Legaltech Hub, and there are far more functionalities than you can see listed here. And of course, with 1,700 plus tools that we've identified so far, there's a lot more technology out there than anybody pretty much realized when we first started building this. And then you see a number like $3.5 billion invested into legal technology in the space of 3 years. More than $1 billion a year, unheard of 5 years ago. But we are really at the vanguard of a brand new frontier in technology and exploding new business.
So this is just one of many maps that exist that show the landscape of legal technology. But just to say, there really has been a boom in recent times, and along with that boom has come the expansion of roles in legal. So certainly within the law firm, but also in-house, we've had legal operations develop, and that again was not a department that existed in organizations until relatively recently. In law firms, we now have innovation departments and innovation roles, which again, when I started in law, that was not something that we would have even understood. And in those innovation departments and also across the firm, we have all kinds of roles. Legal project managers, we have technology project managers on our team. Data analysts are becoming very common, data scientists, litigation support people that include e-discovery specialists, all kinds of process analysts and process optimization experts. There's a whole host of types of roles that now exist in legal that really were not there before. And the reason I highlight that is because for people in those roles, such as myself, one of the things that we are frequently tasked with, or that comes across our desk for all kinds of reasons, is a need to search for a technology solution for something within the legal ecosystem. And I've just thrown up a few use cases, a few reasons why we might look for legal technology within a firm like mine. But I've also heard this need from clients. So solving a problem, finding a solution for a specific use case, building a business case because we want to bring something in, or we want to generate buy-in for a solution that we're building or buying, or developing. Understanding the competitive landscape across a region, a jurisdiction, within a particular functionality category. Or someone mentions a tool and you need to know about it pretty quickly. So you go to the internet to try to find what that is. Maybe you need to know what's out there. One of the things I task my team with is being across the legal tech market and understanding how it's evolving, what's out there, what are the new players, what are the functionalities, how is this affecting our industry and our ecosystem. And in fact, in the United States now, 39 states have a duty of tech competence, which requires lawyers to understand the risks and benefits of technology in legal practice. So this is not a need that only people like I have. This is a need that many people have. And we haven't even gone into students and their interest in legal technology, or legal hackers and a need for an understanding of what certain tools do, or what you might be able to play with together in order to do something else. So there are many, many reasons why we may go to market looking for legal tech, but there's a problem.
It's really hard to find all these tools. Look, when we first started out, and when Nikki first identified this use case, there was a myriad of different platforms to try and find the right legal technology tool. Google is, of course, somewhat comprehensive, but inexact. We found a lot of different, lists that were geographically narrow, or they had incomplete information. They didn't have the information that a user really wanted to find. A lot of them were pay to play, which means you'd find that vendors would just tick every box when it came to functionality, so they would appear on more searches. And so, there was a lot that weren't really legal technology. They were sort of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So, there wasn't anything that was objectively listing everything that was accurately solving a use case for commercial legal, and that was actually a legal technology tool. What's marketing puffery, and why is it there?
Yeah, sorry, Chris, but
How dare you?
when you
There's no puffery in marketing.
When you go to Google, as all of you know, I mean, it's difficult to navigate for this particular field in particular. Is this tool that's come up even a legal solution? Or so many solutions have come up, but I have no idea, if they're relevant to what I'm searching for. What do these tools do? Or, I know the name of the tool I'm looking for. It's called Cicero. How on earth do I spell that? Well, in fact, there are two tools that are called Cicero. Neither of them are spelled the way that you would expect, which makes them extremely difficult to find on something like a Google search, even though you actually know the name. So it's really difficult to navigate that. And as Chris said, when we went and actually looked at the specific directories that were in existence for legal technology, they were inadequate. They were generally regionally specific. They often included all categories, which made it a little bit difficult to navigate for someone like me working in the commercial legal space, because it throws everything in together. They were often out of date. Chris did a lot of research on these and found that quite difficult. The taxonomies are not consistent. They're also not really terribly well thought out. They're often pay to play, which means, a vendor or a solution that says I want in on this directory will pay to be on it, but then that payment enables them to say which functionalities they have. And they obviously will tick as many boxes as they're able to, which means when you do a search, you get the same list of vendors coming up for every single functionality, which frankly is not that helpful for the user.
And we'll see later when we actually look at Legaltech Hub. Look, the listings get out of date really, really fast. One, because there is, rest in peace, but a lot of companies go defunct. And then a lot of companies get acquired or merge. I mean, Latera buys somebody every week, and they cease to basically exist as an independent organization. So we've actually tracked a lot of the organizations that, for whatever reason, are out of date, and we'll show you that later.
And in 2019, I was traveling a lot for work, and I was having conversations with people who worked all over the globe in jobs like mine or as lawyers. And they said, look, we have this problem too, but it's even harder for us because we have clients who operate in 5 different languages, and we need technology that is going to support that need. And just try to find a solution that meets those linguistic needs, but more than that, try to find one on Google and understand whether indeed this tool or this solution works in those languages. It's just a very difficult thing to do. So they often found that they were simply unable to leverage technology, or they had to go to conferences or pick up the phone and actually speak to any vendor they were interested in. So these were the problems we identified. And then we decided to actually set out to map the legal tech ecosystem. It was an interesting decision we made, but it was, as it turns out, very timely. It was shortly before the pandemic hit, so kind of late 2019. And in retrospect, there couldn't have been a better time to knuckle down and decide to spend all of our time in the evenings and weekends doing research on legal technology, because very soon that's all we had to do anyway.
So we had to decide where to start, and the usual suspects of gathering data through the existing lists that were out there, the list that we knew and, well, I was going to say knew and loved, but pretty soon fell out of love with. Google searches, we look at various geographies, various functionalities, starting with practice management tools, and then we actually went to our network of peers. We're both in a really solid position where we know a lot of, internationally, we know a lot of thought leaders, and we asked them, look, what are you looking for? What are the sort of functionalities? What are the areas that you want to know about when you're looking for a tool? So that's how we sort of built at least the taxonomy and started asking them, how do you find out about tools? How do you find out about what the right solutions are? And that's how we started building it. We had these face-to-face meetings. We had in-person phone calls. And then, of course, like I said, the online data gathering.
So over time, we visited thousands and thousands and thousands of websites and built our taxonomies, as Chris said, really working with the people that we knew in the market to make sure at each step that what we were building and the way that we were thinking about the way that information should funnel through the system would make sense to those people and would match the way that they search. So people who haven't worked in search technology before often don't realize the amount of planning and mapping work that is involved in the knowledge flow through a system. But you really have to figure out, for each category of content, what are the key data points that will matter to people? What are the values for a particular filter? How many filters should be on a particular tab for a certain type of content? And it's a real intellectual exercise that we went through by also reaching out to a lot of colleagues. So this is where I was fortunate that I have a knowledge background that could come into play. And this is just a little show and tell of, a handwritten notes that were turned into something on the actual platform as we built out our taxonomy around functionalities. I realized that it actually would be useful for people to be able to really browse by use case. So thinking about how the functionalities fit under the various use cases, and again, how that categorization made sense is an exercise that we underwent also.
Yeah, so when it came to our approach, we started with who our target audience was and what they wanted to know. And that's how we built the taxonomy. Look, I happen to come from a vendor background myself, because I'm working for a legal technology provider. Nikki and her peers are the users to whom we're trying to reach and to solve these use cases. So we asked them, look, what's the stuff you want to find when you look for a solution? How important is the language efficacy? I mean, how important is the platform? Does it have to be? Do you want to know whether it's cloud or on-prem or things like that? So we really went with, as you can read, a user-focused approach. We're trying to build this out.
And I one of my big passions is user-centric design and design thinking. So that was important to me, and we made sure as well that we included people who were in-house and corporate, as well as in small law and large law in this approach.
So we really wanted to level the playing field when it came to global legal technology. I mean, we have, like Lance said, 1,700 plus tools. We thought we would launch with 500, and that was going to be our aim, but we ended up launching with over 1,600, and we are constantly adding more, which means there are far more tools out there than anybody imagined, but there is also far more sizes of organizations that are promoting pretty solid legal technology. We want to make sure that if a tool provides the right functionality and ticks all the right boxes with language, with platform, all that sort of thing, they have just as much of an opportunity to become a solution for an in-house counsel or a law firm as all the big players. And we happen to, we've got a tool in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia that I'm quietly rooting for, because Mongolian practice management tool, if it is good enough, should be able to compete with the LexisNexuses and whoever iManagers of the world. And we want to provide a platform to allow that to happen.
So I think we have now solutions on the site from 60 different countries in the world. And that is growing. And in fact, one of my urges to all of you listening is, if you're aware of any tools that are not on the site that you think should be included, please send them our way, especially those of you, if there's anyone listening from San Salvador. We're very interested in adding El Salvador as a country.
We don't have any tools, zero from El Salvador. We want to add that as the 62nd or 63rd country.
We're working with Peru at the moment to add a few efforts that's a place where there is a burgeoning legal tech industry, which is very exciting. But so, I mean, one of the things that we really made sure of is, you can see on our homepage, we have Ilvis, which is a small Finnish enterprise search solution. And it's up there alongside iManage, which provides Insight, an enterprise search solution. But they're both fantastic solutions. You just, if you may be a smaller firm or an in-house department and you don't have the money to spend on an iManage, maybe you go with an Ilvis, but they're both getting equal promotional value from being on the site. And what we really, as you can see from the filters here, we hoped to have solved the problem for global buyers of legal technology, or people looking at the market to determine what it looks like, by allowing people to filter not just by the language of the platform, but also by the linguistic efficacy. So, you might have an AI tool where you can customize the platform itself, but the AI doesn't work very well across different languages. We wanted to make sure that we were capturing both of those values. And of course, you can filter by headquarters as well as any office location. And target entity, we also included even barristers, although there are very few tools for barristers, but in a split profession, we thought that would be interesting for people as well. So once we had our beta site, we went out and did some QA testing with our various user groups. We made sure, again, that those were a representative group of people across different target entities, but also across the world. So we actually did include people from Latin America, from Europe, from Australia, from Africa, from Asia, as well as across North America, including Canada. And we made some tweaks to the platform, and we continue to evolve and tweak the platform according to our user input.
And here's the aforementioned graveyard and consolidations, where we've actually tracked, since we launched, a scant 8 months ago, we've kept track of the number of tools that we've lost, that have gone defunct, and also all the ones that have actually been acquired or merged with other providers. So once you get a chance, click on there. It makes for interesting reading.
And we think that this will become particularly interesting over time. And in fact, we're already working with research organizations who are really interested in the data that we're capturing on the platform, across the different data points that we're capturing for live tools, but also keeping an eye on these two categories. We also, and for those of you who visited the site, have legal tech resources up there. So hoping to capture the prominent blogs that people should be reading or publications, some selection of what people should be listening to, what they can watch, so that for people, for example, who are new to the industry, who will often come to me and say, how can I learn more? Well, this is a great place to start. It's a good one-stop shop to really find out what are the key resources that you should be across in order to understand what the ecosystem looks like.
We also have given a little bit of effort into writing regional snapshots, where you can actually go onto this the site and search by region if you want to start with finding local tools. But what you'll also find is a bit of a description of what the environment in legal technology is within each one of those regions, and it makes for relatively interesting reading when it comes to what are the mature regions and what are the regions where there are opportunities. That being said, we're working on some sub-regional snapshots. Europe is very large, and so is Asia, for example, and South America. And we want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into those sub-regions to actually bring more relevant information out. What we've also tried to establish, and we use this term quite a bit, is democratizing legal tech. It speaks to how we want to not only give every tool an opportunity to reach the broadest audience possible, but we also want to give back to the legal community, to various projects like the LWOW initiative. We are working with various organizations like the Center for Legal Innovation around the world to make sure that we are actually promoting legal technology and legal technology education. We have a jobs link for anyone who's seeking opportunities within the field, and we want to make sure that we continue to expand and build on this sort of communal environment that we're trying to build here. That we are called the Legaltech Hub for a reason. We genuinely want to make this a hub for people to come and get all of their legal tech resources, but also give back to the legal tech community.
And the Legal Tech job site is run by Dan Van Simpson. That's a separate entity to Legal Tech Hub, but he's from Belgium. It's a really brilliant site for people who are interested in seeking employment within legal tech or legal innovation. But as Chris says, we're building these partnerships in the ecosystem. And most importantly, it was really vital to us that this be a free resource to people. That's not to say that there won't be premium aspects of the offering, but we really want people to be able to access it. We want the entire breadth of legal technology to be accessible to everyone. And we want a listing on Legal Tech Hub, a basic listing, to be free to all vendors. So if you are a startup in your infancy, you can immediately get on the site. And we're starting to work with some incubators to make sure that we get their startups up on the site right at launch. And we may even be building out a kind of pre-launch site for those who are interested in seeing what's happening in evolution, as it were.
So what we've done as far as promoting our presence and our launch, we've we mentioned this a little bit about who are where our traffic is coming from. We launched in October of last year. We had luckily a bit of a runway to some good users and some good promotion because of the peers and our network that we already have established. And we found that a lot of senior folks in knowledge management and innovation globally have already referred us internally and also within their peer groups themselves. So we've enjoyed a lot of traffic from some very senior people in commercial and legal, both in-house and in law firms. We've had visitors from 110 different countries so far. So, and we can't help ourselves. We are always looking at what that number is and we want to see what the new country is. So if anyone's on the call from the Vatican or Andorra, please log onto the site so we can add you. But and on the social media, the reason why we've got that picture of the Qantas 787 is I had a little bit of fun with every time we reached a new Twitter follower number, like 747, 767, 777, and 787. Up went the picture of the Boeing number, but Boeing jet. But we're now at 1,100, so we've gone beyond Boeing craft, which is nice.
We need a new analogy. It was tremendously exciting to launch, and we've had really good traffic since then. It remains relatively steady. We're hoping that our ecosystem partnerships will boost that even more. And it was just so nice and validating to see that we have traffic from so many countries across the world, because really what it showed us is that we hit the mark. The fact that this was a need, especially for the international community, clearly is bang on. And that just, it's deeply fulfilling to realize that.
Yeah, we've also, when we launched, like I said, we had that, a fairly solid peer group of contacts. And we've had a really good take up of promotion with a lot of very well-known thought leadership pieces in the industry. The Bob Ambrogis, Gino Grady's of the world have interviewed us, and we've had really good exposure from a lot of these media outlets and hopefully beyond. So coming up next, look, there's a lot of work goes into it. When we originally started, Nikki and I thought to ourselves, we asked ourselves, why doesn't this resource already exist? And when we started to build and research it, it became obvious why. It was really, really hard to build all this stuff and to look at all these hundreds or thousands of websites. So it is labor intensive, and we are working on new directories for events. We launched 2 months ago that it's been very successful. We have a global calendar of legal tech events that people are really enjoying. Next will be legal consultants, which we think is a really important need for people in the commercial legal space. And then courses and certifications. Oh. Sorry, do we have a question? Sorry, somebody said something? No. Courses and certifications, like everything from weekend courses in legal technology through to bachelor's degrees in legal tech. We're actually putting together and putting it out there. And then we're also looking at legal associations like Legal Hackers, who are certainly on the list, for anybody who wants to join sort of a local chapter of like-minded legal tech enthusiasts. Obviously, post-COVID, that'll be a little bit more important, but we're working on that and getting that out there as well. We have plenty of content. We're building a newsletter. We're also developing use case analysis, and we're looking at doing some deep dives into use case solutions for various vendors. And then we're looking at ratings and compare functionality as well.
And I will say, it's not all roses. It's been a great journey, but there have been some challenges. One is that, not everyone in the legal ecosystem wants to play with us. There are a number of entities that view us as competitors, where we actually thought that we would be able to develop collaborations with them. And of course, it costs money to continue to maintain the site. We have a script that we run across all of the tools so that we can weed out any tools that have gone out of business or business, and really see where there is consistency and what the market swings are. But in order to develop further, we do need to also develop some premium content. So that's what we're looking into at the moment. But one of the things, of course, that has resulted in all of this work and developing a solution is that we have happily gained some expertise along the way, which we think is somewhat unique. And we're very happy to be speaking to you today. We've also done talks in Beijing, to Kazakhstan and Russia, Australia, Peru. It is, you know, it's been a really interesting journey in that regard as well. And so one of the things that we have been able to identify are some of the drivers around why legal technology emerges in one region, for example, and not as much in another region. One of those is the legal landscape itself, of course. So the number of lawyers within the population, and Brazil is a very good example of a region with an extraordinarily high number of lawyers, and I think the largest number of law schools in any country in the world, which is quite phenomenal. But that alone won't cause a legal technology boom. It has to go hand in hand with various other developments. So one indicator, as we've mentioned previously already, is regulatory change and an industry, a legal industry that allows for innovation, innovative business models, the use of technology in legal practice. We also see that where clients organize and are able to demand change, there's obviously a much higher trend towards innovation and a faster pace of change. So again, looking at Brazil as an example, well before clock was established, many legal clients in Brazil were organized and decided that they would be the ones who determined how fees would be assessed within the legal work and the legal engagements that they paid for. And what that has meant is that law firms traditionally now, more often than certainly in the US, do work according to fixed fee arrangements, and their pressure is on to find efficient ways of doing things. The volume and size of deal work matters substantially, and whether it's cross-border. So regions where there's a lot of cross-border work obviously lend themselves to solutions that allow for technology advances in order to understand better compliance frameworks, for example, across multiple jurisdictions. The cultural landscape has a lot to do with it. So Italy is an interesting example of a region where you know, you would think you'd have cross-border work. In fact, the volume and size of the deal work is not so high, but also the cultural landscape doesn't support innovation in the legal space. Whereas in a number of other regions, you look at the UK, for example, they've just put a phenomenal amount of money behind innovative initiatives in the legal industry. And the Nordic region in Europe is another area where there's been a lot of support, government support for innovation across business industries, but including legal. And a lot of the time that comes in the shape of support specifically for startups. Sometimes this is around legal startups, but sometimes it can just be support generally for startups, then ends up sort of trending towards legal as well. Of course, the ability to take advantage of technological advances contributes. And what's interesting is that so much legal technology is birthed in the enthusiasm of young lawyers and student groups. And so to take it to the next level, how to spot it, you'll see your logo here. When we started looking at the different regions and the way that legal technology was evolving across those regions, we noticed that there were certain features in those regions that were synonymous with also a significant industry of legal technology, and or indicative of an industry that was evolving at pace. And the rise of organizations like Legal Hackers is one of those indicators. So where you have, not a huge number of tools for the commercial legal industry, but you have a Legal Hackers chapter in every single city, that is an area where we anticipate there is about to be a huge boom. I look at various places in East Africa, for example, and I think this is a place that is about to have a massive explosion in legal tech, because you have very active student organizations. You have a proliferation of Legal Hackers chapters. And you are starting to see associations that have been formed around those student initiatives that are also starting to hold events on an annual basis, and organize and shape the kind of ad hoc activity that we've seen in the student groups. Twitter is a really good indicator of interest in legal technology. For those of you who are on Twitter, the kind of hashtag law Twitter is a really active space, and you can often tell from the enthusiasm of people who join law Twitter where there are pockets of activity that might be hotbeds for future development. And of course, courts as well, because access to justice is a really key initiator in the development of legal tech. And more to that point, the other thing that we have been able to identify is what the evolution is and what the indicators are of a mature market around legal technology. And what we would say is that almost always access to justice is the first development. And that's very much in keeping with the fact that student organizations are often the ones who first drive this initiative in a particular region, because as I know from having worked with students over the past few years, often their understanding of what is actually fundamentally involved in legal practice is fairly low level until they enter an actual law firm and start working. But what they do understand while they are studying is the challenges around access to justice. And that tends to be where many of those early efforts are spent. What we see after that is that legal marketplaces develop. So again, for the kind of lay person, how to connect people to lawyers, how to find certain things, how to find a divorce lawyer, and then document or contract automation and practice management becomes pretty ubiquitous. So this is driven again by smaller firms, mid-tier firms who need technology in order to function, partly because they don't have the resources probably to do it without technology. But also they tend to use a particular platform, and that platform will almost always be a practice management platform that allows for multiple functionalities in one. You then trend towards kind of deeper knowledge tools. So matter management and expertise management, knowledge management. Research happens early, but research that combines legal research plus something deeper like analytics or AI is on the more sophisticated trend. And then you see really where a market gets to be mature, which is when you have expert systems, data analytics, and AI tools evolve. So that's a sort of trend that we see. All right. Oops.
So here's an example of a regional deep dive that I mentioned before. I mean, I won't read it out to you, but we chose Latin America and the Caribbean here, where we make a note of how we got a mature market like Brazil. There's areas of opportunity like Mexico and Argentina, and areas like Chile and Uruguay. But we offer saved searches across the region when it comes to going in there and searching for local tools. I'll echo what Nikki said before. There are some markets out there that we have scarcity when it comes to some legal technology, and we don't know if we've just not uncovered the right looked under the right rocks to find these tools. But if anybody on this call, again, is aware of any legal tech tools that we do not have listed on our Legaltech Hub, please reach out to us. We have an ad update tab on our page that Nikki will show you, and it's easy to let us know.
So moving into a little bit more of a deep dive here. This is imperfect, I have to say, but we're hoping to be able to produce more analytical content that will go into a little bit more detail like this for many of our regions. You look at Brazil, and this gives a little bit of a snapshot. If you keep in mind what I talked through earlier in terms of the way that we view maturity as evolving over a particular market, there are 74 solutions for the commercial legal market. So that would be a fairly, that would be much less than the total number of solutions in Brazil, because many of those, again, would be legal marketplaces or A2J. But once activity or development moves into the commercial legal space, you can see the gray part of the pie here is the practice management technology. So really that base level of development is covered very well. And then also covered into project management, case management, up to the kind of middle field of matter management and knowledge management. And you can see from the green parts of the pie that this is a relatively mature market, having evolved now into data analytics and AI technology. So I would say this was kind of a mid-maturity model for one of the countries that we've looked at. And this is not representative of all of the categories that are offered in Brazil. It's just to give an indication of what the spread of those functionalities is across the country. And by contrast, you look at Argentina, there are a lot of student organizations active in Argentina. There are legal education, legal technology education courses offered in Argentina. I'm in touch with a number of people there who are really active and interested and enthusiastic. So I would see this as an area that is quite likely to evolve. But there are only 5 solutions currently that we know of for the commercial legal market. And again, you can see the practice management, the kind of base level technology is covered quite well, but it really hasn't developed at all yet into the more sophisticated technologies that we would say indicate that this is a mature market. So I would watch this space for Argentina as an area that is likely to evolve. So we are actually almost at time. We are going to provide a quick demo, but I can see that there are a lot of, that there are some chats. I don't know if there are any questions, whether you want to pause here, Lance, for some questions before we dive into a demo, or what you'd like to do at this stage, given that we are at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I know there were a couple of questions, so maybe we can open it up a little bit now and then do the demo afterwards.
Sure.
Anyone can raise their hand for questions. I'm not going to run the questioning.
I'm actually going to stop sharing because we'll jump into actually the platform.
Okay.
After this.
Great.
I'd like to make a question. I was looking for the numbers of Brazil that you're trying to explain for us. It's really the truth here. We have a lot of legal techs. We also call them law techs. I don't know if you have this denomination there. And we have an association here in Brazil called AB2L. I'm not sure yes, you have heard about it.
Yes.
That brings together legal tech companies. And they did a survey in the middle of last year to understand how the offices were adapting, how the legal firms were adapting to the pandemic. And they found that only 22% of Brazilian firms use the services of legal techs. How do you see this in USA or in the rest of the world? People use more the service of legal tech companies, or they're just like in Brazil?
That is really interesting, Camilla. Thank you for that information. We're aware of AB2L and actually use them for some of our research. That really surprises me about Brazil, actually, that it's only 22% of firms using legal technology, because some of the discussions we had with lawyers there indicated that certainly many of the larger law firms were quite reliant on technology already. So it's interesting. I'm curious as to whether perhaps that indicates a differentiation between different sizes of
Yeah.
firms, perhaps. I would
Perhaps we
say,
have too many lawyers here, too many legal firms,
right.
and just the biggest ones use legal technologies.
I would say certainly in Australia, Canada, the UK, the States, that number would be significantly higher. I mean, I would actually, in the MLaw 100, MLaw 200 firms in the US, I would be very surprised if any were not leveraging legal technology to some extent. It depends as well how you define legal technology, because if you're talking about, document management systems, billing systems, I mean, that is ubiquitous out of necessity to run a firm. But if you're talking about things like using, AI technology for bulk contract review, it's getting up there now. We're seeing a lot of use of those kinds of tools. Workflow automation, document automation has significant take up across law firms. And having worked in Canada and Australia as well, I can say that, and in those markets, because the competition is even higher, I would say that it's even more ubiquitous than it is in the States. But I mean, there are challenges everywhere in terms of the adoption of some of these tools. So the fact that a law firm has certain types of legal technology does not necessarily mean that all lawyers in the firm are using that technology. That is a challenge that is faced, I think, everywhere. I'm sorry, my light I see is very bright. Hang on. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
No problem.
Well, I'll jump in if no one else is. And you kind of touch on it, but I mean, if there's more than 1,700 tools on your site, who's using all of these tools? I mean, is it firms and corporate? I mean, obviously it's all of the above, so you can't just keep that as an answer. But what? I mean, that's a huge kind of system of technology that's available, and yet not many, it's not very expansive in its reach, but who's using all this technology? Is it mainly, I mean, of those 1,700, how many are in the US, and does that make a difference? That kind of thing. Anyway, I'll stop asking my question and let you talk.
Well, I can tell you, ILTA did release a technology report that suggested the AmLaw 200 averaged 2.4 pieces of technology per firm. Look, and further to what Camilla asked, I'll be very surprised, even if there's solo practitioners in the US that don't use some kind of practice management tool.
Yeah.
I'll be very, very surprised if they're doing stuff on Excel and Word documents and billing it that way. So, at very least, everybody's using practice management. Any law firm of any decent size in North America is going to be using probably a document automation tool, a document management system. So, you've got me thinking, Lance, about how many we should come prepared with a number of how many of the 1,700 are practice management and so on, and how many are in the US. I mean, we should not.
Well, I've done, we can show you when we jump into a demo if you'd like, but the US is by far and away the largest market for legal technology in terms of the tools that have been developed, by far and away. Europe would be next, and UK a close follow after Europe. But I actually think that the breadth of legal tech is really broad. I think most firms in the world now are using legal technology of some description. I just think that they are not all using the more sophisticated end of the scale of legal technology. And the other thing that I would say in response to your question, Lance, is you're right. I mean, 1,700 is an enormous number of tools, and many of them won't survive. So that's what we are seeing, is that the market moves very, very quickly. Tools are born and they die every single day, and tools are acquired quickly at the moment as well. And many of these tools, you know, they're developed with a specific goal of being acquired. So you look at a Litera, for example. I mean, we can now look at we can look at the drafting tools on our site, and we could pretty much pick which ones are most likely to now be next on Litera's acquisition list, right? Because they fall within that functionality set, and they're just going through like Pac-Man and acquiring all of them one after the other. So I think that's the other answer, is maybe compared to other technology markets, this one is so broad because the consolidation that generally happens around technology has not come close to completing yet. And I would be very surprised if in 10 years we didn't see a landscape where there were fewer individual tools out there and more larger platforms with interoperability with other platforms.
I'd like to know about the cost of these tools. Are they too expensive, or it is something that is accessible to all kinds of lawyers and law firms?
Very much depends on the tool. So for smaller point solutions, you could, a lot of the tools on our site are ones where you can actually develop, you buy a license or access, and you can access it through the web, and it's on a use basis, pay per use basis. But then there are some large tools where it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to license the technology. So, you know, over a 3-year period, you could easily be paying $300,000 or $400,000 or more.
Yeah, I've seen in my research, I've seen practice management tools aimed at small firms or solo practitioners that, you know, advertise for it's like $8 a month per user on an ongoing basis. And so, you know, and we all know about the monsters that are, you know, talking 7-figure annual bills for research platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question. First, I want to say thank you for putting together this amazing resource, and I hope you can make it a long-term sustainable thing, because it sounds like it really was a mess out there before. When talking about technology, I think it's a perennial question of is this going to put people out of work? And I think there's a lingering question of you know, do we not need lawyers anymore if we have all of this, like all these new tools? And I was just wondering on your take on that question of whether you see new products and markets being opened up, or basically, you know, what was done by hand just can be done by a computer now, and we don't need as many people in that field.
Well, Chris, you work in legal tech, and I've never heard your take on this, so you go first.
I've had conversations with my CEO about this, and he and we are adamant that we want to make people more efficient and not replace anybody. We keep hearing terms like workflow automation or robotic process automation, and we at Xero, we actually shy away from that sort of terminology, because we want to make sure that we are not a robot that's replacing a human being. We want to make sure that you know, people are able to focus on producing work product, like actually practicing law, rather than, in our case at Xero, filing emails. So, you know, look, to be honest, out of the 1,700 tools, probably there are going to be processes involved that reduce headcount out of necessity by driving efficiency. But I really think that no one in legal technology goes out with the express purpose of selling their stuff to put people out of jobs. I think the majority of legal technology are like us, where we we want to make people more empowered and more efficient rather than putting them out of business. But, you know, the nature of a lot of these tools will be that, you know, those inefficiencies possibly could mean lowered headcount.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who works in innovation, and I saw someone else on here is also heads up innovation somewhere at a firm. You know, we get this question all the time from lawyers who are worried about it when we introduce automation. They're either worried about that, or they're worried about, you know, how will my juniors learn if they're not doing this stuff themselves the way that I had to back in the day. But the way that I usually message this is it's not that lawyers won't be, certainly it's not that lawyers won't be necessary anymore. You know, no technology is in the market, even close to being in the market, that could actually replace an entire lawyer and this bespoke legal work that is done sort of at the top end, right? These tools are coming in to automate processes that are standard and repeatable for the most part. But so it's not about replacing lawyers. It's about the reality is that lawyers will need different skills into the future. They will need legal skills. They will also need to be able to work with technology. They don't have to be coders. They don't have to be technologists, but they will need to be able to work with technology as part and parcel of the job that they do. And I would also argue that we need different types of people in the law firm. So as Chris said, I do think it's unrealistic to expect that this won't change the types of headcount needed in a firm. And it may lead to there being fewer associate or graduate positions, you know, at the hiring level for a firm. But there may be, instead of a pure legal intake, you know, over the summer, it might be, we need, instead of 25, we need 10 legal associates and 5 legal project managers and 5 legal technologists, including a data analyst. Because what I truly believe is that the way we're trending, similar to the large 4 accounting firms, is we're going to need to be able to offer services that go beyond legal. And that requires multidisciplinary teams. So I really see it as more of a shift in the way that legal work is produced and delivered, rather than the elimination of lawyers altogether.
That makes sense. I get a lot of lawyers just sighed in relief.
Yeah, that's right. As long as you're okay with tech.
Well, yeah, I bet a lot of lawyers probably. I mean, do you find that a lot, that adoption is stymied, or this legal tech boom is happening much later than it, you know, happened in other fields, just because the nature of it is very conservative?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly true. You know, we all know that this is long overdue in legal, but you know, what's interesting is that I think we all assume that, well, this will be just solved with the new generation of people coming in because they're young people who have been using technology since, you know, since they could remember, and therefore they will be fine leaping in and using technology. But, you know, I've heard from students, for example, that they feel that this is additional pressure on them, and it's unfair that it used to be the case that all they needed to be was good lawyers. And now, why do I need to learn all this stuff about technology as well? I also have heard, you know, from junior associates or summers that come in, again, you know, I just want to practice law. Why can't I, you know, why am I having to learn about this stuff? So, and I think one reason for that is, well, there's a certain image about what a lawyer is, and that, you know, we have all kinds of TV shows and movies that perpetuate that image, and they haven't shifted into the era of a tech augmented lawyer yet. I think it's also that the young people who are coming in, the types of technology that they're familiar with, you know, the iPhone, the iPad, it requires 0 training in order to get over. You know, they know how to swipe. That's what they want the solutions to be. So although you might assume that they'd be much more on board and easier to adopt technology, unfortunately, legal technology isn't yet mature enough to be that streamlined and that intuitive. And it's still really, compared to a lot of other tech industries, kind of in its infancy in that regard. And that means that they do actually have to stop, pause, learn how to use a tool. I think, part of our job in innovation is to ensure that it fits within the workflow so that it reduces the amount of lift in getting that tool into the workflow as much as possible. But there is still a learning curve, and so it's a disconnect, between what they expect and what the tools deliver at this stage.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there might be other questions in Portuguese, but in the chat, but I'm not sure. Maybe someone else can confirm.
I did see lots of Portuguese.
No
going.
questions. They are
Okay.
just commentaries.
Okay.
Okay. Well, listen, this has been great, and we did go a little over time, but maybe if people want to stick around for a demo of the site, Chris and Nikki can kind of run through it. I know I'm up for it.
We can do it quick.
Yeah, I'll do a quick, and feel free to drop off if you want. We're also very happy for any of you to reach out to us at any time if you have any follow-up questions or want to chat about the site or legal tech in general. So feel free to do that, but I'll just jump in and show it for those of you who want to stick around for a little bit.
Actually, people are asking in Portuguese if you may share this content with us, this presentation.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you guys are recording it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's up to Lance.
Yeah. We'll give it to you. Oh man, no, I'm not a mute. I'll send you the link, Camilla, and for the recording.
So I mean, I imagine that most of you have jumped on here and had a look at it, but you can search here by keyword. I really like the type ahead feature because what I was saying to you before about Cicero, I can come in here and search and it will actually allow me to find what I'm looking for, although it's actually not coming up here. See, this is what I mean. How is it so difficult to find a particular tool? But you can search by particular name of a tool and it will come up. Once you find a tool, you can click on it and it will actually show you some information about the tool. It will also provide you with similar results below. So let's do one for a tool that people are familiar with. Let's do Kira. So Kira is a contract review or data extraction tool. It's based out of Canada. I can click on that and it will show you information about Kira, but then it will also show you tools that are similar to it down below. So DocuSign and Seal by DocuSign is another contract review platform. And then it will show you Contract Wrangler. So it allows you to kind of browse through a particular use case quite easily. Neuromind is a Brazilian tool. There you go. So that's one way of browsing and just kind of getting lost down a bit of a rabbit hole on the site. You can also browse by use case. So say we're interested in, let's say, keep it on point and say contract management. You can either click on contract management, which will take you to a full list, which I'll show you, or you can open this up and it will show you all of the functionalities pertaining to contracts and contract management that are on the site. And then if I click on this, it will take you to a saved search with all of those functionalities clicked. And the nice thing about our filters is you can click out of them. So say you look at this and you go, actually, I'm not so interested in smart contracts. You can do that and the results will adapt accordingly. If you ever want to come onto the site and search across our full list, all you have to do is actually just search using the magnifying glass and you'll get the 1,714 results.
This is our chance to see how many American tools there are.
Yeah, so let's dive in. And headquarters in United States, 742. So there you go. I mean, and then let's look at Europe. which I said is the number 2. Oh, you can't, I'll have to go into the regional snapshots because obviously Europe, here you go. So Europe as a combined entity is 379. This gives you a good view of our regional snapshots, and then the fact that it has the saved search across all of the countries in that particular region, again, with the ability to drill down. So one of the ones that I like is target entity, because I just think it's really helpful to be able to say as a, you know, corporate in-house department, well, I'm in Europe, but I'm a corporate in-house. I don't really want to see tools that are only geared towards law firms. And so you're down to 281, and then say, but you know what? I actually had a friend of mine reach out, and she was living in Liechtenstein, and she was working for a French company, and she was looking for a particular tool that operated in French as well as English. And so you can add those 2 values, and you're down to 221, which means quite a few. Then say, well, actually what I'm looking for here specifically is something that can help me with, say, project management or matter management. So I'm going to click on matter management, and there are 5. You know, so it immediately gives you a kind of subset that is meaningful to you based on your environment, which is just impossible to do anywhere else, frankly. So that's one of the benefits of this. We also have the events. So I have to admit, this has been very difficult for us to manage this year because the events are not on their regular schedules. And a lot of events are not happening, or if they are happening, they're happening at a different time and virtually. So what we've been trying to do is actually add in tools that are, events and with a little note to indicate what's happening. So we had Legal Week this today, starting again, and we have a little note saying that instead of the usual week-long event in 2021, Legal Week has been converted into a virtual series of events taking place over the course of the whole year. And then it allows you, of course, to visit the website and register for those events right from there, which is nice. And if you go back, you'll see our full list of events. Again, events, I mean, we're growing. So if any of you have additional events, and by the way, we don't include webinars. We would only include day-long or longer kind of events that are more substantial for legal innovation or legal tech across the world. But let's see, we wanted to find out how many of our tools are practice management. So let's find that out too. The other thing that we know that people are quite interested in this for is actually mapping out a particular market. So say you're a startup and you're interested, you're about to launch, but you want to know, should I launch in, you know, Canada and Brazil as well as the US? You can go in and see, well, the market's kind of covered or saturated for this, or you know what, there's a real opportunity here for a particular type of tool. And you can do that using the offices as well. So 298 practice management tools on the site, which is a lot for one type of functionality or tool. Does anyone want me to do any other searches while we're on here? Or show you anything? I can show you the Legaltech resources. We also have been trying to, this is a German Legaltech blog. We have a Danish one. We have obviously UK and US, but I'd love to, we have Indian. I'd love to include any, you know, if there's a significant Brazilian resource that you think we should include, please let us know. Also podcasts and so on. And then, yes, I'll show the graveyard. So this is where tools are sent to die.
Are some of those acquired, or are they?
No, these are just the ones that have, and there's a couple of pages. So these are just the ones that have actually become completely defunct since we started gathering data. This is the consolidations. So you can see Litera. Oh, these are all, there's something happening there.
Because they're all different DocsCore
products. Different
products.
DocsCore products, that's why. Yeah, so DocsCore was acquired by Litera. foundation before that, allegory, I mean, best practice. It really gives a bit of a picture of what's happening in the market.
And what this is, these consolidations in this graveyard, that's a bit over a year, like
Yeah,
1 year. You
Yeah.
can see how many are in the graveyard in 12 months.
yeah. So here we have the link to the Legaltech jobs. And some of these are coming. So studying legal technology will be a directory that will be launching, as well as awards and consultants. So that is it in a nutshell. We really-
It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's a very, as I said to start, it is really a comprehensive directory. Just
Thank
about everything on there. I can't imagine how much, because all of this, how much time you guys spend on it, because it looks like a lot of this stuff is manually entered, all of the
it still is.
languages, all
It
of
still
the,
is.
yeah. So I'm sure it keeps you busy nights
Yeah.
and weekends.
And look, and we're averaging probably half a dozen add or update my listings a week still
Coming through from vendors.
coming through
Yeah.
from people. A lot of them we have to turn down because they're not technically legal tech, or they're not aimed at the commercial legal market, or they already exist and the people haven't bothered actually looking for them because everyone thinks I haven't submitted my info, so I'm not on there. They didn't realize that we did all the submitting for them.
But it
Yeah.
is a labor of love, Lance. I think you could say it's our weird hobby for. That's a very strange thing for a married couple in their time.
maybe one day it can be your retirement.
Maybe,
investment.
yeah.
Yeah, gosh. Well, listen, thank you both so very much for coming on tonight and going through the Legaltech Hub with us. It's quite impressive, and the information is quite impressive too. I think just on the note of how many in the U.S., 700 and something or other. That means still that there's 1,000 other tools around the world, right? And so that's it's quite impressive. Those
You
numbers.
wouldn't have gotten
But,
a lot of prominence, right? That's the thing. People wouldn't necessarily know
Right.
about them. Yeah.
Right. And they could be wildly successful in their market, and nobody knows about them outside of that market.
Right.
But I don't know, Camilla, did you want to say anything?
I just want to say thank you. It was awesome to meet you guys and the work that you have been doing for the past few years. I believe it's a really hard work, and I appreciate the effort for all the community and legal ecosystem in the world.
Thank you so much, Camilla.
Thank you. That's really
It's
nice
so
to
nice
hear.
to meet you. Yeah. Thanks to all of you for
Thanks,
your time
guys.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody who joined us from around the world.
Bye.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.